Well, welcome everyone. We're back to our Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting as today for our cases. It's 1:26 p.m., August 13, 2020. Your Honor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. All right, good afternoon. I'm opening the record in the matter of the Board of Behavioral Sciences, which is hearing a petition for modification of penalty, early termination of Robert Thomas Nelson. The agency case number is 2002-015-000-900. The Office of Administrative Hearings case number is 2020-070-583. I'm Administrative Law Judge John DeCure. Today is Thursday, August the 13th, 2020, and this is a telephonic hearing due to the national health crisis. It's before not only a quorum of the board, but all board members. It is approximately 1:27 p.m. May I have an appearance, please, by the Deputy Attorney General?
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General.
All right, and is the petitioner, Mr. Nelson, on the line? Can you identify yourself?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Robert Nelson.
Hello, Mr. Nelson. Do you understand that you have the ability to have a lawyer represent you in an administrative hearing such as this?
I do.
Okay, do you choose to represent yourself today?
Yes, I do.
All right, that's perfectly okay. It's very common. As a layperson, there may be parts of the hearing that would raise a question for you as to what's happening. Anything involving the process, I'll try to make it simple for you and guide the hearing along, but if you reach a point where you don't know what's happening, please don't suffer in silence. Just go ahead and ask, all right?
Okay.
The hearing process is pretty simple. First of all, you're not expected to reiterate things that are in the petition because the board members will have the documents. I'm going to have Ms. Crawford identify them as I've done in other hearings today. They'll be marked, they'll be admitted in evidence. I will ask you if you have any objections. That's a formality. Just the same, you're here mostly to talk about your particular situation, why you're before the board, whatever rehabilitation you've engaged in, what you're asking the board to do today as part of your petition. But you don't need to reiterate anything necessarily that's already in the documentation unless you think it's relevant. Do you intend to testify on your behalf today?
Yes, I do.
All right, let me start by swearing you in. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that in the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding, you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, thank you. Now we'll get to you testifying a little bit later, and I'll talk with you about that before you do. For right now, I'd like to switch over to Ms. Crawford and have her identify the documents and then proceed with her opening remarks, and we'll come back to you. Okay, Ms. Crawford, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've got 6 exhibits that have been previously disclosed to Mr. Nelson. The first is the board memorandum regarding the probation status. The second exhibit is the notification of hearing to the petitioner. The third exhibit is the certification of registration history. Fourth exhibit is the petition for early termination of probation and attachments in support. I would note that in this exhibit at AGO 15, there is a document that is confidential, and I did request an order sealing that document that I submitted a couple of days ago. Do you have that, Your Honor?
I do. I read it as well, and as I think you know, now there's a separate form that the ALJ fills out, which I will complete to ensure that that portion of the record is sealed. Mr. Nelson, that has to do with something that council noticed was really essentially a medical record. It's a report, I believe, from someone you've treated with. And so that's your private business. And I noticed also that you don't have any opposition. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead, counsel.
Exhibit 5 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, along with the underlying statement of issues. And Exhibit 6 is the denied petition for early termination of probation from June of 2018. I would like those marked accordingly and introduced at this time.
All right, thank you. Exhibits 1 through 6, as council just described in detail, have all been marked. Mr. Nelson, do you have any objection to any of those exhibits being admitted in evidence for the board's consideration?
No, Your Honor.
All right, there being no objection, 1 through 6 are now marked and are admitted. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did want to, again, introduce myself on the record. I am Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the state of California, pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but intended to protect the public interest and to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. By way of a background, on October 29, 2014, the petitioner filed an application to obtain an associate marriage and family therapist registration. The board denied his application and filed a statement of issues on July 2nd, 2015. Pursuant to a stipulated settlement, the petitioner was issued a registration on February 24th, 2016. The registration was revoked and the revocation stayed. The registration was placed on 5 years of probation. 6 months remain on petitioner's probation period. The basis of the denial of petitioner's application was due to a extensive criminal history. Petitioner's criminal history spanned from 1993 through 2011. In 1993, petitioner was convicted of being under the influence of controlled substances. In 1995, he was convicted of petty theft and felony possession of controlled substances. In 97, he was convicted of 3 separate counts of felony petty theft with priors. And in 1998, he was convicted of 1 count of felony petty theft. In 2003, he was convicted of 2 counts of being under the influence of a controlled substance, 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance, 2 counts of felony petty theft with priors, and 1 count of resisting arrest, along with 6 counts of failure to appear. These convictions were for acts committed between 2000 and 2003. In 2009, he was convicted for possession of a controlled substance and being under the influence of a controlled substance, as well as 2 felony enhancements for priors. And in 2011, he was convicted for being under the influence of a controlled substance and possession of a controlled substance without a prescription. He was ordered to subject himself to search and seizures and drug testing, to register as a drug offender, and was issued a lifetime ban on the possession of any firearm or deadly weapon. As part of his probation with the board, he was required to undergo a psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, relapse prevention program, remedial education, biological fluid testing, substance dependency support groups, and to pay costs. He is compliant in all aspects of his probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Mr. Nelson, even though you're representing yourself, you can give your full testimony. It's going to take a little doing on your part in terms of how you shape it, because you don't have somebody here to ask you questions to bring it out. Because initially you'll give direct testimony, which means you're going to just tell your story. And you may have heard me suggest this to other petitioners today if you were listening to their hearings. I think the best way to do that without causing you to miss something or forget something that you regret not saying later, the most complete way perhaps would be for you to give us a chronological perspective on whatever it is you want to testify to. Now, you can talk about it however you like. It's up to you. but that's a generic suggestion that I make for anyone in your shoes. If you hear anybody, particularly Ms. Crawford or myself, say objection, just stop testifying and I'll deal with the objection before we move on. Okay. With that, do you have any questions at this point?
I do. Since this is my second petition for early termination, and I've testified pretty extensively on, that I have an addiction and the underlying, which is the underlying factor of my convictions and the underlying, factors of the addiction. How much of that should I go back into if,
Well,
for the sake of starting from the beginning?
That's an excellent question. And what I have to do is really defer to you because I've got to stay unbiased. I'm not representing you and I can't give you the benefit of my experience to tell you how to shape your testimony. So those are really decisions you have to make. What I would suggest is that you know that the board already is aware of much of your underlying case. So you may not have to rebuild it as if you're painting a picture just for sake of getting information across, because they already have that information. On the other hand, if you think a particular context, a starting point, an issue of rehabilitation would have to come from some of that past experience, of course you can describe that because that's part of what rehabilitation is about. You've got to be rehabilitated from something. So it's really up to you as to how you want to go back in time to talk about whatever was going on then and perhaps where you've gone since then. All I was suggesting earlier is that you don't need to reiterate some of the basic background because just for purposes of posterity, because the board already has those documents that Ms. Crawford described in front of it. They already know your history somewhat. What you're here to do today is tell us essentially why you're here. And yes, it may be important to talk about where you're coming from, so to speak. And in that regard, I have to leave it up to you. Go ahead.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I thought I might talk a little bit about what I've been doing professionally first, because it helps. It just helps for the whole testimony. And then maybe what I've learned since the last hearing, which was in May of 2018, things that I've learned about myself and insight that I've gained. Can you hear me okay? I'm on a headset so I can hear you guys well.
This is Judge Shakira. I can hear you fine.
Very
okay.
clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, the underlying factor for my convictions was an addiction. And, so I think I'll start, well, actually I made two outlines because I wasn't really sure how far to go. So let me get my bearings. So since my last appearance in 2018, around October of 2018, I went to work for an agency that has contracts with state parole, California state parole, and the U.S. courts for federal probation and pretrial services. So since that time, I've been working with mandated clients who have sex offenses. So I'm a certified sex offender treatment provider, and I'm also certified with Sorazzo to use the assessments for those offenders. I'm also providing mental health and substance abuse counselors for clients on federal probation and pretrial probation. So I think it's kind of ironic. I never intended when I set out to learn how to help other people to work as kind of part of the arm of the justice system, working with clients on parole or probation, but that has really helped me to help them, my past experiences. So let's see. So really, what do I know about addiction? One thing I know about addiction is that it's lifelong, and it is something that can be arrested, but there's no cure. And I do know that, I want to be and I need to stay vigilant with my recovery, which includes, taking care of myself, using my support system, uh, continued personal growth, paying attention to my spiritual condition. Um, and I do that. So since my last hearing, I have stayed uh, active with my support system. Uh, I'm still a part of Crystal Meth Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a lot of friends in my support system who are in recovery, and friends who are colleagues in this field. Um, and um, so really, I redid my outline. So just let me just go back to originally how I was going to do this, because I think it's going to work out better. Uh, so I have been doing my board ordered therapy, and I got to the point in my therapy where my therapist, um, recommended termination. Some of the insight that I've gained since our last meeting here. Um, I talked about this last time. I always had this feeling of loneliness and emptiness and longing. I always longed for a relationship, as if that would complete me. And I've learned since then that I'm okay and I'm enough in my own right. I've really come to be okay as a single person without a relationship, and really feel confident and secure. I've never had um, so much of, feel like emotionally independent. Um, my clean date is still May 2nd, 2011. And really basically, I've completed my 40 hours of therapy since the last hearing, and I have given 25 once a month negative urinalysis tests, and I have paid my monthly uh, restitution to the board up to date, up through July, and I've continued to abstain from substances, and continue to grow in my career. Um, Things that I've done to ensure that I'm safe to practice is, to stay clean and sober, to focus on my recovery, and, live with integrity, and, lead by example. Working with the type of clients that I have, um, I know that personal responsibility is the most important thing that I can model. And when I first started my personal journey of healing, it seemed as if um, helping other people was, in adopting that goal that was bigger than myself, was the first step. But I did recognize that there was something missing, and so I've had the opportunity to work on that. I don't feel lonely anymore. I feel happy for the first time in my life. Um, I I just feel really good. Um, I think I'm going to defer to any questions that I might get, because I think that will help me draw out what I was going to really share. I basically just continue to do what I've been doing and continue to grow in my career and personally since the last hearing. That's really probably my opening statement.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, you're
Have a
welcome.
drink.
Thank you.
Have a drink of water and
Yeah,
take a couple of deep breaths. You're doing fine. This part is actually a little easier because you can sit back and just focus on one question at a time. And you've been very succinct so far. So my only suggestion is to listen carefully and give a succinct answer to that one particular question before you. Okay. In other words, you don't have to hit a home run and cover things that are not in the question. If you think that there's something additional that you want to explain, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that after the questions are done, because you did give a very succinct, self-contained statement. Okay. So just focus on each question. And when we get to the end of that, if you need to make additional comments or explain something further, I think we'll have time for you to do that. All right, let me start with Ms. Crawford and her questions on cross. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Nelson.
Good afternoon.
When did you get off of probation for your last criminal conviction?
That would be sometime in 2012. So over 8 years ago. It was 12 months after my last conviction.
Okay. And you've talked to us about your addiction. What substances were you addicted to?
Primarily crystal meth anonymous. I did have problematic drinking periods in my life, no question about that. But crystal meth was the main substance.
And your sobriety date that you mentioned, is that from all substances and alcohol?
Yes, that's everything, all substances and alcohol.
Okay. So your criminal history spans about 20 years, from 93 to 2011, so about 18 years. What was going on in your life that put you on that path and kept you there for nearly 2 decades?
Well, it started with the death of my significant other. And leading up to the death, the loss of the life that we did have together in our business. It really started as maladaptive coping for the grief that I was feeling. And to be honest, I just got caught up in the addiction, and I really lost sight of even what I was using the drugs to cope with. I did, and I had my own I had my own illness, my own non-addictive illness, and I really actually was preparing to die myself. I thought that, I was diagnosed with something that I was supposed to die from at that time, but it just didn't turn out to be that way. And so, like I said, I just kind of got lost in all of that.
And
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but it's kind of taking away from his testimony. I can hear all the typing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna move my notes away. And what was the triggering moment where you decided that your sobriety was going to be what was paramount in your life?
Well, I mean, certainly I recognize that addiction doesn't work, that drugs don't work. I did get very tired of, going back into courts and having to answer for my behavior and incarceration. I just felt like there was no other real choice for me but to get to recover and go forward, because I felt like there was nothing to really live for. I mean, I was empty. I was going nowhere. It was just the lowest part of my life, the lowest point in my life. And I had attempted to recover before 2011, before that sobriety date. And the knowledge that I gained to be able to recover, since then, it was accumulative over time. So really, it was just an emptiness. It was just an awakening. It's either get better and recover or die in my addiction, or spend my life in and out of prison. That's just not for me.
And your support structure today, what does that look like that helps you maintain your sobriety day to day?
I have a lot of friends that I met through 12-step recovery. Of course, I attend my recovery support meetings. A lot of my close friends are former coworkers who are colleagues in this field, and other friends that I have, and my sponsor. And I'm still in therapy, even with the same therapist that I've been doing my board ordered therapy.
Your sponsor is affiliated with what group?
With AA.
With AA, okay.
Yes.
Have you worked?
Well, actually, my sponsor has a crystal meth addiction as well, but AA is really my go-to primary support group.
Okay. How long have you been going to AA for your support group?
Well, I started in 1996. I've been going continuously since 2011, since my recovery date started. Far before my first registration, MFT registration was granted, I had already been very much involved in CMA, Crystal Meth Anonymous, AA, and NA. Like I said, mostly AA.
Okay. Do you sponsor anyone?
I stopped sponsoring people a couple of years ago because of just, doing what we do in our profession. I just don't want to overload myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so no, I don't.
And have you worked through the steps in your AA?
Oh, yes.
Are you still working through any steps?
Well, I'm continuing to work the last 3 steps, 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis. I've worked through the steps several times with a sponsor. And I used to sponsor a multitude of people. I've sponsored many people, but like I said, I haven't done it for some time.
Okay. Tell me what those last 3 steps are that are prevalent in your life.
Well, continuing to really take inventory, be aware of my behaviors and what I do, and continuing to, stay close to my, stay spiritually fit, close to my program and close to my, my higher power, and continuing to help others, carry a strong message of recovery. And I can do that when I'm in meetings or just when I'm in my personal life, if I should run into somebody who's struggling with addiction. And of course, I don't take 12 steps per se into my substance abuse counseling or my therapy, but it is a tool that's available to my clients, and I will recommend that they go. So that's all part of my 10 and 11, 12, my last 3 steps, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay. Through your rehabilitation program, through therapy, have you been able to identify whether you do have triggers that give you thoughts of use? And if so, how do you avoid those triggers?
Well, my main triggers were, I had body images. I was grossly overweight. I presented, that in my other my first petition. I dealt with those triggers. I lost the weight. I got in shape. I worked on my body issues in therapy. I worked on my low self-esteem and my low confidence. I use my self-care to manage my stress. Stress would be a trigger. All of those things I mentioned. Those were all triggers. loneliness was a big trigger during my active addiction. And it was something that was with me since childhood all the way through my whole life until maybe 2.5 years ago. It just, with all of the work that I've done, it just kind of lifted. And it really helped to work on my body issues. So, those were and would be my triggers.
At what point during your life did you start having an interest in therapy, and what drew you to your career?
Good question. Because I was trying to get clean on my own, I would make it 3 months or 6 months. I was going to AA and meeting people. I went to see he was a psychologist, and for one session, I knew him. I was going to some recovery-based support groups that he was facilitating. But finally I went into individual therapy, and he helped me recognize that he thought low self-esteem was a big factor for me and something to work on. And that was shortly before my last period of incarceration. So I saw him, and maybe 6 weeks later, I went to prison my second time. And in there, I started focusing on, they had me go into some program where we had some cognitive behavioral worksheets about self-esteem and using positive affirmations. And I kind of started with that, and it was helping me. So I thought, well, I'm going to read more books on psychology. And it started, ironically, the seed was planted inside there. I was taking what I was learning and helping others.
Yeah.
In there. And I thought, well, maybe when I go back to school, this is what I want to do.
Okay. Now you're here today asking for an early termination of your probation. In what way would it impact your life if probation was terminated?
Well, I mean, for me, for my first petition, it was pretty much a financial crisis. This time around, I really feel it will give me the personal satisfaction and validation, validating myself for the hard work that I've done and the good work that I'm able to do. And I think being recognized by the board of peers, really, would mean a lot to me. And it just really feels like the next step on my journey. I don't feel the urgency like I felt the last time because the financial pressures are much less. I mean, that's a small factor. I mean, that's a factor, significant factor. But really it's the self satisfaction and also the prestige of not having a restricted or a probationary license.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
This is Judge Shakir. Thank you very much. We're going to go back to the top of our list, and that begins.
Your Honor, can I ask you a question? Can I just ask just a clarifying question before you offer up the questions from the board?
Go ahead.
So, am I accurate in understanding that his probation began in August of 2015, and if nothing changes, it would actually end in August of this year? Am I understanding that correctly, just for my own clarification?
Ms. Crawford? Hello, Ms. Crawford?
Yes. So he's got about 6 months left on his probation. He was issued his registration in February 24th, 2016, and that's when his probation began.
Okay. So it's not the actual date when he signed the actual, okay, thank you. That's clarification. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Let's go back to questions by board members. Chairperson, Mr. Disposti, do you have any questions?
Thank you. What a surprise. Nelson, since we've been so consistent with everyone else, what pronouns would you like us to use?
He, him, his.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Nelson. I honestly, more than a questions, I would like to share with you, congratulate you with the work you've done. I've seen the letters of performance, I've seen our referrals, I've seen a lot of the work you've done, and also the stories that you just shared with us. And many of these things also happened quite some time ago, right? So there's been a lot of time lapse between everything that has happened, and you're 6 months away from ending the probation. So I hope you, obviously it's not my place to say, but I hope that comes through you, because it's really nice to see that work, and it's really nice to see how far have you come today to us here at the board. So thank you so much. I also wanted to just ask a question, mostly in relation to what the probation has done to you, that you think, what has been the element? It's really important for us as a board member to also understand that in general, not just in your case, but what the terms of probation have done to you in terms of growth, and how have you dealt with it?
For one thing, it really punctuates the nature of the privilege of being able to do the type of work that we do, and the fiduciary responsibility that we have to our clients. I think that makes a big impact. I think that it seems like a huge endeavor in the beginning, but recognizing that I can actually, go to all those weekly UA tests and just all of the things, right? I can do, I can deal with a lot and accomplish a lot and deal with a lot of stressors, and it did keep me on track. The first couple years of the probation, I was still working on the loneliness, and, helped me get into shape and everything. So, I mean, it's a safety net that it was good that it was there.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Nelson. I'm not a clinician. I'm a public member of the board, but I do employ clinicians to work on my nonprofit. And it's always a blessing to find someone that can actually resonate with the work of our clients as well, and telling this story in a way that's very humbling and also resonate with a lot of people. So I appreciate you coming forward today, sharing more about yourself. And so no further questions. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Judge Shakir. Ms. Anthony, do you have any questions?
Hi. Hello, Mr. Nelson. Thank you for
Hi.
sharing. I wish I had been here 2 years ago. I actually wanted to hear more in depth, but I appreciate what you did share today. And I think that a lot of questions were drawn out by the questions you've already been asked. So I do appreciate it. I can tell there's like a serious story of a lot of resilience. And I want to echo our chairman's commentary, because I do feel like you have this lived experience, and people don't realize like that's so special. And you have that, and you work with federal probationers, and I read the letter from Sharper Future, and I was really impressed by it. I was impressed by your letter from your therapist as well, who's recommending your therapy to be terminated, because I am a therapist, and therapy is not supposed to be forever. And so I do believe that termination of therapy is when it comes from your therapist, that says something about how far you've come in that journey. And the fact that you're still continuing on with therapy is also very special. But I was just going to comment or share or ask, actually, I'm sorry, a question. What do you think are like your top three, like therapy at some point it'll be ended. And so what are, other than your support systems, what are three like activities or three things that you do to help yourself on a daily basis? And substance abuse is an illness, which I don't think incarceration fixes in any type of way. So there's that. But I will say this, that whatever therapist inspired you inside of that prison, like you are literal light, like you are light. And you are a story of hope. And so just know that, because I've worked in corrections, and to hear your story is very inspirational. But I do want to know three things that are your coping skills that you utilize regularly to help yourself with those triggers or with just daily life, like when you're feeling overwhelmed?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Exercise is a big coping skill for me. Um, I actually am lucky enough to belong to a gym that's actually still open on a limited capacity at the moment. So working out and exercising, I've been on softball teams, um, bicycle riding and hiking. Those are big for me. Social gatherings with close friends regularly, and most recently, I've liked to go slightly out of town to the beach. Um, and so, I mean, that's been really, right now where I work, I mean, we're understaffed and the COVID situation has really changed everything. I would love to take a vacation, but I can't. So little staycations have been really helping me, little local journeys, things like that.
Thank you.
Cooking.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you so
This
much.
is, this is Judge Shakir. Thank you very much. Dr. Brew, do you have any questions?
No questions, just a comment. Let's see, sorry, I'm trying to pin the video so I can see you there. There you are. I was here 2 years ago, and I want to say I can see an improvement. You are grounded and calmer and clearer, and you look so much healthier. So I'm glad you survived that illness you expected to die from. I'm so glad, and that you can contribute back to other people and share your story and your healing. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for your feedback.
All right, this is Judge Shakir. We'll move on to Debra Brown. Do you have any questions, Ms. Brown?
I have just one question. Good afternoon. And I too was here 2 years ago, and I echo exactly what Dr. Brew was just saying. My question is, and you're going to be off in 6 months. And by the time, we meet after this, and then it goes through the paper chain that it needs to get to, it could be within just months of finding out one way or the other. So I was wondering, what is it that you wanted the board to know to come back at this late date, when you could? What do you want us to know when you only have 6 months left? There's a reason that you wanted to come back to ask for that amount of months off. And can you tell me what you would like me to know?
Sure. And I really thought that the hearing was not going to happen because of COVID-19. And then I got the letter and I thought, oh, wow, I do have the opportunity. Really just the hard work that I've done, and that I am safe and fit to practice, that I'm trusted, and that there's confidence in me. It really does, in my mind and my heart, help me personally to know, working with the clients that I work with, that I've achieved that level and achieved it, even ahead of schedule. So yeah, I think just knowing that means a lot to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Judge Shakir. We're moving on to Mr. Ehrlich. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I just have one. Good afternoon, Mr. Nelson. Thank you again for coming in or showing up virtually and going through and talking about all of this.
Thank you.
What is the frequency of your support groups and meetings? How often do you go a week, and how many?
Well, I go to I log on twice a week now, but before COVID, it was something that I would do. There would be some weeks where I would go, 5 times, and sometimes just with the 2. There's been periods of time in my life, it's been a while, but I mean, it is a very social thing. It is a very big part of, staying grounded. So, I mean, there have been times when I go every day, Sometimes, I like to go twice on a day, on a weekend day. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again. I appreciate your demeanor through this this hearing, your candor, and I'm very impressed with the calmness and the ability with which you're able to kind of talk about all these things. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is Judge DeCure. All right, we're moving on to Christopher Jones. I'm sorry, I skipped over Susan Friedman. Ms. Friedman?
Hi, I really just have a comment. Thank you very, very much for being here. I was not here in 2008 when you were here before. But the one thing I heard you say today, which I thought was really quite wonderful, was that you are really happy. And I think for a person to say that they are really happy, especially now when the majority of people aren't happy. I mean, this is a very difficult time for everybody. So I am really happy to hear you say that, and I'm really happy for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
This is Judge DeCure. Feeling happy as well. Calling on Mr. Jones. I'm sorry, it's infectious. What can I say? Mr. Jones, do you have any questions?
Hi, I also don't have a question, just a comment. Mr. Nelson, I'm very impressed with your journey and all the things that you've been through. It's quite the story. So congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Maddox, do you have any questions?
I only have one, and I'll preface it by saying I was not here 2 years ago, but I am thoroughly sort of impressed with sort of how settled you are. It is clear that your rehabilitation has been internalized and that you are living it out from your presentation today. I just want to say thank you for coming. I want to say thank you for the hard work you've done on your journey. And I think it's going to make you all the much more, that was bad grammar.
Uh-oh, am I freezing?
He's frozen, Your Honor. Shall I go off?
Where'd he go?
Your Honor, you're on mute. I apologize. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's move on, and we'll allow Mr. Maddox to make further comments if he'd like when he comes back, because he disconnected this morning as well. I remember that. So we're still on the record. I'm going to move on to Mr. Ranisinger and ask him if he has any questions.
Mr. Nelson, I'm very saddened that I was not here 2 years ago to see you then. I'm going to echo the comments of all the other board members. I have two questions. The first is, you mentioned that you work with federal probation. I might understand you're in fairly regular contact with federal probation officers as part of your job. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Now I'm also the regional coordinator for the program at Sharper Future. So my contact will be increasing ever more now that we're moving a little bit past the COVID. But so to answer your question, yes.
Okay. So this is my next question. It is 2009. You've just got 2 convictions of 2 felony enhancements. You've done a bit of time in jail. Your 4th waiver, did you think you'd now be running today a federal probation program on substance abuse?
Never in my wildest imagination. No, I did not.
Bro, you blazed the path to your own recovery. Outstanding.
Thank you.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Your Honor. I think I got kicked out again. I'm not sure what's going on.
I don't think anybody kicked you out. I don't think anyone kicked you out, but we stopped hearing you mid-sentence. You were commending the petitioner. Okay. So if you want to conclude your remarks, then go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. And so I just want to say, I don't know where I stopped, but I just ended up by saying, very glad that you're in the field with us, that your lived experience and your clinical experience are going to make you a tremendous asset. But my question was just about accountable relationships and what those look like for you, people who can speak into your life and challenge you and hold you accountable. for your blind spots. Could you speak to that, please?
I do have really good supervision with my colleagues, supervision where I work and, close relationships with my colleagues. But a lot of my friends are in the field. And so they would recognize anything that, that they needed to point out to my attention. My best friend, actually, and he's from AA, he knows me like a book. I mean, I could not I can always go to him with anything, but I barely have to say hello and he will know that there's something I need to talk about, right? So I'm lucky enough to have that in my life.
Well, good. I am glad to hear that. I think the experiential humility that you're articulating and living out in your life is going to serve you well. So thank you so much for coming today and have a great day.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right, this is Judge DeCure. We're moving on to Mr. Sobek. Do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Strack, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions. Just wanted to echo the comments from some of my colleagues. Just really impressed with your recovery. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Vice Chair Ms. Wong, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. I was just about to describe myself the last but not the least. Thank you for reading my mind. And so I have to say that, I do have the privilege of, being part of the board member, part of the peer board members, like Mr. Nelson say, to meet with him 2 years ago. And Dr. Brew actually completely took my words, of how to describe you, that you're just way calmer, very, very grounded. And I can just feel, really feel that peace that you were talking about. And I think that itself is, what I can see the difference. And so I want to really commend you for, for accomplishing this stage. And so, so I just really want to appreciate, the stories that you told and, and the work accomplishment that you have done. Working with sex offender is not easy at all. And, so I am wondering, in that sense, and I noticed that, you're still an AMFT. So 2 questions. So 1, are you still receiving supervision, for your license? And for 2, when you have, sex offender is just a really interesting thing. It's such an interesting area. So I wonder is that if you run into any of these, issues, dealing with the clients, do you, who do you go for, to see consultation, supervision and such?
Yes, I do. It was yesterday something came up relating to a client who had said something outside of our agency, and it was brought to our attention and was something that I went to supervision to my supervisors, and got the guidance and feedback that I needed to resolve the situation.
Right. Are you good to for the people telling you what to do? Are you good to follow?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, for sure. I want to do it right. And yeah. I don't want to, I want to help, not hinder.
So how far along for your licensing process?
Well, I used to give you a short answer, I have 89 hours left. I had miscalculated my hours when I applied to take the test. I mixed up the two, the old version of reporting your hours, the streamlined version and the older version. I thought you could count the first 150 hours double like you could with the old version. That's what I was factoring in to my 3,000 hours. And so I'm currently working those right now.
Good.
So as soon as I'm done with that, I will be taking the test.
Awesome. And I have no doubt you will get your license soon. So what is the plan afterwards? When you get your license?
I am going to stay with Sharper Future. It's a growing company. It's a company that I love. I really love the work that I do. I think the you know, the work that I do and the clients that we serve helps me to stay humble and to stay grounded.
That is very awesome. So I just want to close by sharing that. I think your experience and how you work through, your own loneliness, all these baggage, and realizing that, substance use has been your escape. And now you came back on the other side and be a successful therapist. I think that will be a really wonderful testimony, for many, many people that you can do it. Recover happens. So thank you very much. I have no more questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Okay, Mr. Nelson, I did mention to you earlier that if you wanted to testify further and explain any answers or situations you talked about when you were questioned, you'd have the opportunity to do that. From my perspective, you've been really candid in all the answers you've given. And so you may not want to do that. Another way of looking at that, based on the board's many remarks, is you might want to quit while you're ahead and move on to making your closing remarks. But it's up to you. What would you like to do?
I just would like to say thank you to you, Your Honor, and all the members of the board and the assistant DA. Sorry, I have the title wrong at the moment. But I mean, just like last time, I felt very warmly received, and it wasn't. This wasn't a threatening process. It was something that I looked forward to, especially after the experience I had last time. So I just want to thank everyone.
All right, this is Judge Shakir. Thank you very much. Ms. Crawford, do you have any closing remarks?
I do not, Your Honor. I do not.
All right, thank you. Just a quick question. Are you a former deputy DA?
A long, long time ago.
You see, Mr. Nelson, you're on a roll. You guessed it correctly.
Okay, good.
She's a deputy attorney general right now, but she was in a prior incarnation not too long ago. She was a deputy DA.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, very good. Very good. Thank you, Ms. Crawford.
At this point, we're at the conclusion of the hearing. Do you have any questions, Mr. Nelson? What the board will do is they're going to deliberate about your case at the end of the final case. They'll do that privately. And you should hear something in the next, say, 30 to 45 days in writing. Okay, I wanted to mention that to you because I know there's a time element here. And one of the board members astutely brought that up. So don't change your address without letting the board know, but you should hear something hopefully in about 45 days, no later.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to close the record. And I'm going to ask so we're off the record now. I'm going to ask Mr. Chairman, Mr. Disposti, to tell us when our next case will be heard.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to end right now at 2:24. We're reconvening at 2:35, and we have our last petitioner, just for the sake of transparency, I believe is James Thompson. So we can all reconvene at 2:35.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Judge, this is
Thank you, everyone. It looks like everyone is taking positions. Okay. We're back on our public portion of the hearing of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is Thursday, August 13, and it's 2:35. Your Honor, the floor is yours for our last petitioners. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm opening the record in the matter of the Board of Behavioral Sciences petition for modification or early termination of probation matter. The petition was filed by Corey James Thompson. The agency case number is 2002 016-001-708. The Office of Administrative Hearings case number is 2020-070-588. I'm Administrative Law Judge John DeCure, and today is Thursday, August the 13th, 2020. It's approximately 2:35 in the afternoon, and due to the national health crisis, this hearing is being conducted telephonically. We also have audio-visual, and it's before a quorum of the board, but actually every board member is participating. And have appearances, please, beginning with the Deputy Attorney General.
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General.
All right, and Mr. Thompson, could you please state your name and let us know you're appearing?
Corey Thompson.
Hi, Mr. Thompson. Thank you very much for your patience. You, I know, have been available all day, so I really appreciate the fact that you've hung in there as long as you have. The benefit to you is that this is our 5th petition hearing, and this board is full of smart people who have gotten into a really good rhythm. So I think that that actually is good for you. At any rate, if you've heard any of the other petition presentations, you probably have a good idea of how this proceeds. The first thing I'd like to do is ask you if you're representing yourself today.
I am.
Okay, you understand that you do have the ability to have an attorney represent you in an administrative hearing like this?
I do.
Okay, so it will be much the same as you're choosing to represent yourself. I will still ask you if you have any objections to any of the documents that counsel is going to present. And that's because you do have a right to act as if you are an attorney. Just the same, I don't think that that will be an issue, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. What I'd like to do first is swear you in if you intend to testify on your behalf today.
I do.
Do you? All right, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that in the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding, you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, thank you. I'd like to turn this over to Ms. Crawford so that she can identify the documents that she's submitting on behalf of the board. Ms. Crawford, I did notice also that there is a request for protective order on Exhibit 4 to seal it. That is, Mr. Thompson, that's something that is private, that came from a PhD who you've seen, and it was considered like a medical record in that it's your private business. So that part of the documents would be seen by the board members, but it would be sealed for the record. At any rate, go ahead, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Your Honor. Exhibit 1 is the board's memo regarding the probation status of Mr. Thompson. Exhibit 2 is the notification of hearing for today's hearing date. Exhibit 3 is the certification of registration history. Exhibit 4 is the petition for early termination of probation and the attachments in support. And Exhibit 5 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, along with the underlying statement of issues. I would like all of those marked, and they have been provided to the petitioner, so I'd like them introduced at this time.
Thank you very much. Exhibits 1 through 5, as described by counsel, have all been marked. And as I mentioned, Exhibit 4, there will be, I'm going to grant the protective order request, and that would be page 17 of Exhibit 4. It's going to be sealed. Is there any objection to Exhibits 1 through 5 being admitted into evidence, Mr. Thompson?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, there being no objection, Exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as described, are admitted. Counsel, would you like to give your opening remarks?
Yes, I prepared a statement.
Oh, just a sec. I said counsel. I didn't upgrade you earlier in one of the other hearings. I upgraded somebody to a doctor, which was kind of a no-no, and everybody was nice enough not to say anything because I think it might be illegal to do that.
Right.
So I'm not going to bestow you the ability to practice law, even though you can act like a lawyer. I'm just going to take it over to Ms. Crawford and let her make her remarks first. Then, Mr. Thompson, I'll talk to you about your testimony. Okay?
Absolutely.
Ms. Crawford, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appear on behalf of the state of California. and pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, I am here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but intended to protect the public and to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. By way of background of this case, the petitioner applied for an associate professional clinical counselor registration on February 29, 2016, which was denied. Pursuant to stipulation, petitioner was issued his APCC registration on October 31st, 2017, which was then placed on probation. On February 1st of 2017, on February 1st, 2017, the board filed a statement of issues denying petitioner's registration. The basis of the denial was as follows. In January of 2013, the petitioner was convicted of public intoxication and for failure to appear in court at his arraignment. In February 2013, the petitioner was convicted of a DUI with a blood alcohol level of 0.24. He was placed on probation, and he failed to comply with the terms of probation, which included a 9-month alcohol program. On November 2nd, 2017, pursuant to a stipulation, the petitioner was issued his APCC registration, which was placed on probation for 3 years. The probation included standard terms and conditions, as well as undergoing a psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, education courses, relapse prevention program, dependency support program, and abstaining from controlled substances and submitting to drug testing. He is compliant in all terms of his probation. The petitioner is requesting early termination of probation. His probation was told for approximately 3 months. Therefore, 6 months remain on his probation term. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Okay, Mr. Thompson, since you don't have somebody here to ask you questions to bring out your initial testimony, I'm going to allow you to give a narrative statement, and that's essentially like telling your story to the board. It's completely up to you how you want to do that, but my generic suggestion to people in your shoes is that to keep yourself from having holes or gaps in your testimony that you later might regret, you may want to go chronologically. And it's up to you as to what you believe is relevant that the board should know. Keep in mind that you're not here to necessarily have to reiterate any things that are already in the petition. It's totally up to your judgment as to what you want to talk about. One of the big focuses is on rehabilitation, typically in these types of hearings, but you can describe your situation and the things you went through, whatever you think is relevant in the way that you like. If you hear anyone say objection, just stop talking and I'll deal with the objection and then we'll get back to your testimony. When we're done with that, we'll get into cross-examination and I'll give you a couple of basic pointers before you start that. Okay, with that, you may proceed with your direct. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Your Honor, Deputy Attorney General, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. I would like to address my efforts to correct the irresponsible and reckless actions of my past. As previously expressed, my charges, including 2 charges of alcohol abuse, are inexcusable actions unbecoming of a professional clinical counselor. Over the past 3 years, I have not only complied with the terms of my probation, but I have sought the counsel of professionals and taken a moral inventory. Through my relapse prevention program and dependency support groups, I have learned the dangerousness of my abuse and have gained skills to achieve and maintain not only abstinence, but sobriety. I found that abstinence was only the beginning. I needed to take an honest look and inventory of why I used alcohol to numb pain that I wasn't consciously aware of. I recognized that when I became a father at 16 years old, I did not grieve the loss of my teen and early adult years. Instead, I internalized the pain and attempted to live a double life. The responsible single father and the outgoing college child. This attitude created a deep wound that I chose to fill with alcohol in an attempt to continue the narrative that I could be a father, but still have fun in college. My therapist, who has since passed on, helped me to understand that I struggled to find purpose in my life. Thus, I struggled with direction and confidence. Understanding what brought me to the point in which I chose to abuse alcohol has been an eye-opening experience and has helped me in both my personal and professional lives. Upon accepting my probation terms, I was a newlywed, and I have now since added 2 more lovely children to our family. I have found my purpose in life as a husband, father, and counselor. My family has endured the hardship of my probation and supported me every step of the way. I am motivated to continue making them proud by growing as a person and as a counselor. I have wanted to be a therapist since the day I walked into my first therapist's office as a young, frightened 15-year-old who just received news he would be a father within the year. It has been a long and difficult road due to self-imposed circumstances, but I am now close to becoming licensed. I have taken my experience and utilized it in the counseling of young men in residential rehab who often have the same frightened look I had when I was first starting out. And I ask the board to please grant my request to terminate my probation so I can move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Cross-examination is really simple if you think of it only in terms of what you have to do, and that's to listen carefully to one question that's being asked. And when you hear it, think about your answer, give your answer to that question, and just wait for the next question. If you break it down into individual questions, it becomes a rhythm that you can get into quite readily. I don't want you to try to expand on answers unnecessarily, because you will have the opportunity later, if you want to give further testimony, to explain anything that you didn't get a chance to explain when you were asked those questions. But that's really how cross-examination goes. Just try to confine your answers to answering the question itself. And as I said, you'll get an opportunity later to testify further if you need to. All right?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We'll start with Ms. Crawford. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson.
Good afternoon.
It sounds like you are attending AA groups, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. How long have you been attending AA?
I initially started attending as a requirement of my DUI program in 2013. And then I attended some in grad school over the course of 2012 through 2014. And then I continued to attend starting in 2017 after signing on for my probation.
How often do you go?
Twice per week.
Do you have a sponsor?
I do not have a sponsor. I have an informal sponsor. He's a good friend of mine that doesn't quite fit the sponsor relationship, but he's my peer support.
Hey, Caesar. Hi, Caesar.
This is a reporter.
Hello?
Let's go off the record.
All right, we're off the record, and I think there's some ambient noise with perhaps one of the board members. I don't know who.
Your Honor, should
can
I
everyone
put that
check to make sure that their mics are muted? The only 2 people right now would be Ms. Crawford and Mr. Thompson, who don't have their mics muted. Yeah, I can still hear ambient noise. So one of our board members has their mic
So
open.
Ebo Champ, their phone is not muted, so you might want to ask that person to mute. I'll go back on mute. Ebo Champ.
Thank you. Okay, I don't hear that noise anymore. To keep the flow of this going, let's go back on the record.
Yes, sir.
We're back on the record, and I'm sorry, I believe Mr. Thompson was answering a question when he was interrupted by ambient noise. Go ahead.
Did I answer that, Mrs. Crawford?
I had asked you if you had a sponsor. You said you have a peer support person, and I don't know if you had finished answering about that individual.
This is an individual who I've known, and it's sort of like a pseudo sponsor, an informal sponsor, who I have done work with in the past.
And does this person have an Alcoholics Anonymous background?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. He is in recovery himself, and Alcoholics Anonymous. He attends Celebrate Recovery. He actually runs a division of Celebrate Recovery.
Okay. Is there a reason that you chose not to have a sponsor or to choose a sponsor in the more traditional sense from someone in your AA group?
For me, he was somebody that I fully trusted, and I thought that that was something that was really important. And I had seen him actually walk through his journey a couple years prior to mine, so it seemed to fit.
Okay.
Ms. Crawford, can I interject here for just a quick moment? It's been brought to my attention that Mr. Thompson has not been sworn in. Is that correct?
This is Judge Shakir. I thought I swore him in. Mr. Thompson, did I swear you in?
I thought you did.
Right. I typically do that earlier before the person testifies.
Okay.
And the reason is it's part of the basic bullet point script that I follow, but I'm pretty certain that I did swear him in.
Okay, I apologize. I was,
Okay.
someone brought it to my attention. Thank you.
All right. I'm afraid I might be putting people to sleep at this point, and that's no reflection on Mr. Thompson or Ms. Crawford. Go ahead. Ms. Crawford, ask another question. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a sobriety date?
10/27/17.
And what are you sober from?
All substances, mainly alcohol.
I'm sorry?
All substances, but main focus is alcohol.
Okay. And what is the significance of that date?
Well, it was before my probation period had started, and I had been requested to abstain from all substances at that period of time. And
And other than going to your support groups, how do you maintain your sobriety day to day?
Day to day, like I said, I'm a therapist at a residential rehab facility, co-occurring for young adult men. And so my work with them is really beneficial to my own work in helping others recover and kind of sharing my story and working alongside them and helping them to gain recovery skills. Personally, a lot of self-care. My family is a great support. I have wonderful grandparents that watch the children for me and my wife so that we can spend time together on dates, which is very important to me. And utilizing exercise and really just reading and consuming things to better myself. Attending church and volunteering as a small group leader for sixth grade students. All of those things really help to keep my main focus kind of singular. And
why are you asking for probation to be terminated early?
This has been quite a difficult road. There are some financial issues that occur with the frequency of tests and all the other costs that I have to incur. It also takes away a great deal of time with my family in the evenings. I just had a son April 15th, and I had a daughter previously June of 2018. So I got the young kids around, and it's really important that we spend our evenings because my wife and I both work. So it's important that we spend the evenings as a family unit. Having to run to do tests and go to meetings and things like that, those seem to bog me down at times.
Okay. If your probation is terminated early, do you intend to continue with any support groups?
Yeah.
Okay. So you would continue with Alcoholics Anonymous?
Celebrate Recovery.
Celebrate Recovery, okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is Judge DeCure. We're going to turn now to board members who may have questions, and I'll start with Vice Chair Wong. Ms. Wong?
Thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Thompson. Thank you so much for coming to the board and and share your case. So I just have some clarifying question. And so so when did you start drinking? What year?
What year did I start drinking? I believe 2004, possibly.
So 2004, and then you stopped drinking at 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so so it looks like, there's like a 13 years of, the alcohol and other substance use. Is that correct?
My first drink of alcohol would be 2004, not a consistent use of alcohol, but
okay.
Yes.
Okay, and so now your couple of the couple of the offenses, the criminal conviction, was about the DUI, and the BAC level was quite high. So yes. Can you explain to us, what's your drinking pattern is like? What's your drinking pattern, and yeah.
So during that time, I was just had graduated from college, and I largely continued the pattern that I had done in college, which was severe abuse over a the weekend type thing, not every weekend, but the quantity was quite extreme when I would drink and to go out and party per se. That kind of clarifies my pattern of drinking. After the DUI conviction, my drinking pattern changed. I was no longer of the mindset that I was a college student and wanting to party and go out and have a lot of drinks at one time. So my pattern of drinking typically had shifted to more of like a couple of glasses of wine at dinner, or maybe the occasional beer or two with friends.
Okay, and so so good. So you change, basically from the binge drinking, to kind of like more the normal drinking, and so
your social drinking is what I think it would be identified as.
Okay, I like that. So binge drinker and the social drinker. And so, so now, and so do you, so for that change, it's the other substances, that involve and as a substitute, or is it like just basically?
No, I was never really into, I had used other substances, experimented at times with marijuana. But I never used more substances. It was mainly just alcohol.
Okay. So, interesting thing is that, your sobriety day is pretty much just right before, your acceptance of the stipulation. So will you stop drinking, if, without the board put you on probation?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So will you stop drinking, if the board, didn't put you on probation?
Would I have stopped drinking? I don't know that I would have necessarily stopped drinking if I was not put on probation.
Okay. All right. And I have just one brief question, just for clarification. So I was reading your letter of recommendation from your therapist, and it looks like, the focus of your therapy, you used a large part of the therapy to, to talk about, more like your professional challenges and struggles. So can you actually give me a little bit more information about your focus? It's just interesting to me that individual therapy, that, it seems like more like a consultation or like a supervision. And so can you just clarify, what your focus were for your therapy?
Yeah, so initially the focus was substance abuse, and it was the underlying factors of substance abuse. And that is something that I worked with him for just about 3 years, and that is something that we had worked on for probably the first 2 years, really intensely. I was seeing him every week. The other part of therapy and some of the time that was used and what's reflected in that document is really a focus on not only the substance abuse and the abstinence, but also what professional clinical counselors, what their responsibility is, the law and the ethics portion of it. My therapist was big on knowing law and ethics, knowing what I needed to do after getting off of probation in order to continue to keep my license. And after hearing some of the stories that were presented today, that's really, something that has popped back up into my mind, is the law and the ethics portion of it, and really making sure as a clinician, as somebody who is protecting the public, working with the public, making sure that not only I adhere to the laws, but my ethics are solid.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have no further question, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Let's move to Wendy Strack.
Hi, thanks for being here. I just have a couple questions, and one might be for staff. Am I reading it correctly that you're coming up at the end of your existing probation this November? Are we within 3 months, or did I misread that?
I told my probation for a period of time. I think I'm due off. I believe she said 6 months from now.
Okay. Because my question there was, I thought by the time we gave a decision, you might be at the end there anyway, but the 6 months makes sense. Just then 2 quick clarifying questions. I know you've kind of addressed some of these things already, but I just wanted to kind of dig a little deeper. You kind of mentioned that the board's process is kind of what led you to stop drinking. So once this process is over, what kind of, do you plan to drink again? What would your relationship with alcohol be after probation?
So I think it's important, I know I'm going to divert just slightly, but when I was given the terms of my probation, at that time, I had not stopped drinking because I had changed from binge drinking to social drinking. And in my mind, that was a much better way. But in attending the dependency support groups and my relapse prevention program and talking with colleagues and in therapy, the present thought in my mind is, why bother? The risk is far too lofty. So it is not my intention to continue to use alcohol. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. And then you mentioned that you're going to still participate in the support group afterwards. Besides that, I assume your family and your spouse are part of your support system. Are there any others that are sort of part of that overall support system for you?
My coworkers, whom a lot are in sobriety themselves, they're a good support system that I have. My church family, as well as my regular family. I have a very wonderful close friends, so my support system is pretty broad.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is Judge DeCure. We'll move on to John Sovic.
Thank you so much. And before I begin, I just want to confirm with you the pronouns you would like me to address you with.
He, him.
Thank you. So I want to start with a couple of questions about your program usage of the substance use programs. So you mentioned that you attended when you had your DUI. You mentioned you attended during grad school, and you mentioned that you attended during probation. Are there times when you have voluntarily chosen to be in part of a substance support program?
No, I think after this would be my first time voluntarily going. Everything else was mandated.
Okay, so currently everything has been mandated. I just want to hear that for myself.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. In your Celebrate Recovery program, would you say you're in the series of Journey Begins or potentially Journey Continues?
Begins.
Okay. And the person who is loosely sponsoring you, supporting you, where would you say that? Are they part of your Celebrate Recovery program, or are they part of an AA program?
Celebrate Recovery. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, and just from your knowledge of their journey, are they somewhere in beginnings or are they somewhere in continues?
Continues.
Okay, so they have moved through the process a little bit farther along than maybe you have at this point.
Yes.
Okay. In working through beginnings, where would you say you are in that process?
It's really the unmanageability portion of it is something that is really present in my mind. But it's also the inventory portion of it, and that's really when I look at the 12 steps and I look at what I am doing and where I have come from, what makes me tick per se, that is something that I am working to get a handle on.
Okay, thank you. Moving to your work experience right now, you had mentioned in your opening statement that you're working with a lot of young men who appear to be traveling a similar path that you've traveled in your past. Is that correct?
Correct.
In that work, are you finding yourself triggered at all and having to seek support? And if so, how do you do that?
No, I don't find myself triggered per se. I think I really appreciate the opportunity in trying to impart kind of maybe what I wish that I would have heard much younger. But in the same manner, yes, I do still seek support in how to manage. I am still being supervised, and I do bring those cases often to my supervisor. And some cases more than other remind me of my own story, and I make sure that I am remaining impartial. And if I have any sort of countertransference, I want to try and address that. My current supervisor is great. He sits in on sessions, so he can kind of pick up on some of the things that I'm not aware of. So sometimes those things do come up, and I have to really look inside and say to myself, what is it that I was picking up from that person then?
Okay, thank you. And just one final question, and I guess this is more of a life philosophy, where are you going question. You mentioned in your opening statement, one of the reasons you wanted to have your probation lifted was because you wanted to move forward. What does that phrase actually mean to you?
Well, I feel like I've been battling this for 8 years, not just the BBS portion of it, but also the criminal portion of it. And so it's sort of that black cloud that's hung over my head. And I feel like I now am seeing some daylight. I'm close to being licensed, and I want, when I become licensed, to be free and clear of all probation terms and, kind of a new beginning and a, new chapter, so to say.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Judge Shapiro. Thank you, Mr. Sovic. Mr. Ranasinger, do you have any questions?
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
Hello.
The thing that really is concerning to me is the two FTAs where you were bench warranted, once in October and once in November. I can see getting an alcohol-related offense, but Can you explain to me, have you addressed that in therapy? Why? A lot of young people, but a lot of young people FTA. I will say that, because out of fear, out of stigma, out of shame. What happened?
Well, my FTAs were out of sheer ignorance. I was handed my citation upon leaving jail and didn't realize that I had a court date listed on the back, although I was notified. That's a terrible excuse. I recognize that, and which is why I put myself on calendar as soon as I was able to. And I wish I had a better explanation for that, but I really do not.
Okay. Okay, I have nothing further on it. Thank you.
This is Judge Shakira. Thank you. We're moving on to Mr. Maddox. Do you have any questions, please?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jones.
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman.
Hi, Mr. Thompson. I just have one thing you mentioned that you probably would not have ceased drinking if it hadn't been for the probation program that you were involved in. But you also mentioned that your family is a very strong impetus for you. And I'm wondering right now, right this moment, what's the strongest support that you have? Is it your family?
Well, yes. Yes, my family is probably what I would list as my strongest. Although my internal support of myself, which I'm really working on, I think that is the strongest, plus my faith. All three of those components, it's hard to put one over the other.
That's great to hear. It's amazing what little kids can do to change your life.
Absolutely. It completely changes everything.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, this is Judge Shakira. Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Ehrlich.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson. I had a question. I guess the only other lawyer aside from myself that has criminal defense experience kind of touched on the failure to appears and bench warrant issues. That was kind of the main question that I had. I know that you had talked about the initial failure to appear for the initial court date, and I've seen that before a lot in my practice, getting a piece of paper and not really kind of paying attention to it. I noticed there appeared to me to be maybe two others, and that was maybe some post-conviction, not turning in or showing proof to the court regarding your alcohol program and other terms and conditions. I was wondering if you could shed some light on maybe why, especially after failing to appear once, why maybe other ones occurred.
So there was I believe a bench warrant for not showing proof of attendance in my DUI program. I'm having an awful time recollecting what exactly went on in that situation. I know that I had resolved it quickly, and I apologize. I'm not thinking. I'm not remembering that very clearly. I'm wondering if it was my, I don't know, continued ignorance as to how and what the process looked like. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that one.
On it, I'm not overly concerned with that right now. I just wanted to know if there was any sort of reasons that you could recall.
It wasn't. It wasn't a trying to not sit in front of a judge. It wasn't anything like that. That both of those, I had put myself on calendar, and that I had gone and done what I needed to do. So neither of those were a case of being ashamed or anything like that. and, you know, God willing, I'll never have to appear in court in that manner again, but I will be absolutely thorough as to when court dates are and in the future.
Sure. No, I get it. I understand. And I know that you'd mentioned the tolling of your probation. I don't know if I missed if you had said that the reason was for that. And I apologize again if you did explain it.
No, I actually did not. I told my probation for a period of 12 weeks for baby bonding in 2018.
Got it. Okay. No further questions. Thank you for your appearance today.
Thank you.
Judge Shakira, we're moving on to Ms. Brown. Do you have any questions?
No, I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Brew?
I have two questions. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. I'm curious, do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
I identify as such.
Okay, thanks. And I wonder if there are people in your life, you had talked about that you have some sober friends, but you, I presume, live with your wife and probably visit your family since they're helping a lot with childcare. Are you well, pre-COVID, are you normally attending family events, gatherings where other people are consuming alcohol?
Yeah, I have, absolutely. I've attended, you know, weddings and things of that nature, Christmas, Thanksgiving, things like that, where yes, there is alcohol there.
And if you can imagine, what will that be like for you once you're off probation? Because you've said right now you have no intention of drinking because why bother? The risk is too high. You know, imagine 3 years from now, what will hold you to that? Like as the pain of probation fades.
Right. I think this cessation of drinking is more about where I want to be in my career and what I know can happen. So that motivation will continue to be present. There's also the case of, you know, continuing support groups and seeking support. And that's something that in the past that I had failed to do, was to actively seek support when knowing that I was, you know, feeling very overwhelmed and not participating in self-care. So that is something that will help me to continue in the future.
So if you find yourself struggling, then you would seek out support and help, and that's new for you.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Anthony, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you for being here, though.
Thank you.
And our chairperson, Mr. Disposti, do you have any questions?
No further question. Thank you.
All right. As I mentioned when you began testifying, Mr. Thompson, if you would like, you can give further testimony on redirect. If there are any questions you were asked and you didn't think that you got a full chance to answer or you wanted to explain further, you could do that.
At this time, Your Honor, I don't have anything to add.
All right, then what I think you can do now that would be effective is make closing remarks however you like. I know you read your previous statement. You don't have to read this one. You can, I think, if you can focus on what you're asking the board for and why, essentially you hope that they'll do what you're asking in your petition. That's probably a good starting point. Go ahead.
I would like the board to consider the work that I've done and the work that I have committed to continue to do in granting me termination of probation. And that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, do you have any closing remarks?
I don't, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Again, I appreciate your, on behalf of the board, I appreciate your cooperation, but also your patience since you were the last person to go today. I know this is
Appreciate it.
stressful situation having to wait for this hearing. So thank you again. Ms. Crawford, thank you so much. Over all 5 of these hearings, you've been really well prepared and aided the board and me tremendously with that. So I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Disposti, unless you have any other issues, I'm going to close the record in this case.
We can close the record, and then I'll make a statement about our closed session and the time of reconvening tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Then with that, closing the record, and we are off the record.
Wonderful. Okay, everyone. So we're now moving into a closed session, and the board will adjourn tomorrow. We'll reconvene in open session on Friday, August 14, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. So
Can I ask Ryan a question? I was kicked out of a couple of the hearings at the beginning and the end. Can I get some times from you? Opening and closing of the records, if you have those available?
Yes, ma'am. I think the Judge DeCure actually has the openings and closings and even has the page numbers. So I can give him this half one. And if that's okay with you, if you can hand that information over.
Yeah, we can do that in closed session.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. Judge, the information for the last hearing. I'm sorry, you're on mute, Judge.
I just had to mute myself one more time. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I've got an official stop time for this hearing at 3:21 with a page count of yada, yada, yada. Let's do the math. About 30 pages.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sanjeev. Appreciate all your help today.
Thank you very much. Very good. Judge, if you don't need anything else, am I relieved of my duties?